It was 3:42 at Dotton when I realized the cameras weren't just watching the building anymore. They were watching me. Night security is boring in a way that messes with your head. Long hours, fluorescent lights, a quiet so deep that every sound feels louder than it should. By the time the clock hit 2 a.m., my brain was already slipping into that half-awake state, where shadows look wrong and reflections linger too long. I was sitting in the control room, scrolling through camera feeds, when camera 6 froze. Not blacked out, frozen. I leaned closer, annoyed more than scared at first. Then the feed updated, and I saw myself. Same uniform, same posture. Same limp I'd developed after an old knee injury. He stood in the third-floor hallway, directly under the flickering light, staring up into the camera. I looked down at my own legs. I hadn't moved. My radio crackled. Static, then breathing. Slow, controlled. I whispered, "Control room to..." Nothing answered. On the monitor, the thing wearing my face tilted its head. The movement was wrong, like joints bending the way they weren't meant to. Its mouth stretched into a smile that didn't reach the eyes. The smile felt practiced, like it was learning. All 6 monitors went black at once. Behind me, the hallway lights outside the control room clicked on. Footsteps followed. They sounded exactly like mine. The call light turned on at 2:11 at .m. That's when I knew something was wrong. I was the only nurse assigned to the closed wing. Budget cuts, skeleton crew. The kind of shift where the hospital feels less like a place of healing and more like a sleeping animal breathing softly in the dark. The call light blinked at the end of the hallway. Room 317, except there was no room 310. I checked the floor map twice. Rooms stopped at 316, always had. Still, the light pulsed. Faster, more urgent. The door was already open. Inside, the air felt cold in a way hospitals usually aren't. Not air-conditioned cold, empty cold. A man lay in the bed facing the wall, unmoving. "I didn't call you," he said before I spoke. His voice lagged, like the sound arrived after the words were spoken. The heart monitor beside him was flat. No beep, no line, just silence. I reached for the chart, blank pages. No name, no wristband. He turned his head slightly. "Don't stay," he whispered. "It learns faces." The hallway lights flickered. When I turned back toward the door, the corridor outside had stretched impossibly long, bending away into darkness. I woke up on the floor hours later. Administration said I collapsed in a supply closet. But every night since, someone logs vitals from room 317. Always at 2:11 at .m. Factories never truly stop. They just slow down enough for you to hear them breathing. I worked overnight maintenance at a packaging plant. Conveyor belts, robotic arms, digital counters ticking upward, counting productivity like it meant something. At exactly 2:08 the production counter reset. 0. That never happened. 7 minutes later, the number started climbing again. 1, 2, 3, the machines weren't moving. No belts, no arms, no forklifts. Just the sound. Click, click, click. I followed it to Assembly Bay C. Something stood beside the conveyor. Tall, thin, still. It didn't have features so much as suggestions of them, angles where a body should be. The counter jumped. "Production complete," the system announced cheerfully. The next morning, management said the overnight log showed a successful run. Final output 1 unit. 2 weeks later, the factory shut down. I don't drive past it anymore. Sometimes I swear I hear counting. Brass's screen. Story 4, the guard who answered the phone. The phone rang at 3:18 at .m, and that alone should have stopped me. The landline in the guard booth hadn't worked in years. Everyone used radios now, and that phone was nothing more than a dusty prop left behind from another shift, another time. Still it rang, slow, deliberate, like it knew I was listening. I picked it up before I could talk myself out of it, and all I heard was breathing. Not panicked, not rushed, calm, familiar. Then the voice spoke, asking if I had checked the loading bay, and my stomach dropped, because the voice on the other end was my own. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because sometimes that's what your mind does, when it's trapped. Right then, the loading bay lights turned on by themselves. On the security monitor, I watched the massive bay doors slide open from the inside, metal groaning softly as if something unseen was leaving. The phone whispered 2 words, "Too late," and everything after that blurred. I don't remember collapsing. The next guard found me slumped over the desk, the receiver still warm in my hand. The call log showed a single incoming call, traced back to my own extension, timestamp 3:18 at .m. The phone still rings every night. No one answers anymore. Arcade Tutfon. Black screen. Story 5. The thing that only appears after 2. Every night shift has rules, but ours only had 1. After 2:00 do not acknowledge anyone you don't recognize. I thought it was a joke, something supervisors made up to scare new hires. Then at 2:06, I saw him standing by the lockers. No badge, no familiar face. Just watching. He lifted his hand and waved, slow and casual, like he'd been waiting for me. I waved back without thinking. That's when the lights flickered. He stepped forward into the light, and there was nothing where his face should have been. Just depth, like looking down a hallway that never ended. No features, no eyes, just space. Then he was gone. When I told my supervisor, he didn't yell. He didn't even look surprised. He sighed and said the rule wasn't about safety, it was about permission. Now, every night at 2:06, something waves at me from the corner of my vision. And somehow, it knows my name, ND. Subscribe for more chilling tales that come alive after midnight.